Hey, I want to thank Karen for doing that video this morning about the nasal stuff, how important that is when it comes to atmospheric pressure, right? Or pressure, high pressure systems. You know, wet bulb, dry bulb, right? Atom spheres, right? Water worlds. And it's funny how she put that up and gave a lot of really wonderful ways to do that. And she used to do a lot of great stuff on enemas. And I've had I've had an industrial sized enema once, if you know how that's done in a hospital environment, and where you know that it's a big enema, but it's like being flooded. But it's not coincidence that a couple things that I observed over the last couple of days. No sooner did I watch that video just 15, 20 minutes ago, and then I see Longhouse Milo Stewart, right, Mohawk, and mentioned something that is actually very critical that I've covered a lot in just stuff that I put up about time-space vectors, right? Remember I did the thing on the frame with the photo? I mean, up on the wall, that goodie up there on that wall. And when your sensors are fully activated, that means that your sense of smell, your sense of touch, your sight, everything just goes, right? So that essentially means your state of awareness of any change that is taking place in a time-space vector, you immediately acknowledge it, the change that is taking place, and the speed. So you can think of it, if you want to think of it euphemistically or metaphorically, the way that a hard drive operates, a CD-ROM drive. You're recording what we're experiencing, the speed at which change is taking place, right? In one direction or another between what? Compression and expansion of consciousness or atmospheres. Low pressure, high pressure, right? And the ether speed, like Ethernet cable, like wide area network ether. The holographic codes represented by the DNA codes, represented by codes that are at war against other codes. So those, I've said this before, this is radio sets against radio sets. So I remember when LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, said, we control the weather, we control the world. Because he's talking about what? Atoms, atom spheres, controlling the atoms. Remember they mentioned that word? Full spectrum dominance, full atmospheric dominance over atoms. Yeah, I know. So he was showing, and he made a true remark when he said, boy, these clouds that were coming in here related to the hurricane on Turtle Island, right, northern hemisphere, coming down out of the southwest, he said, normally when we see these changes, if a storm's going to come in, it may take a few minutes before we experience the impact of what we now experience as a result of what we experience in our mirror, which is the clouds and the storm that is now upon us. So it's much like when I was up in the Angeles Mountains, when was that? Last summer. And you start seeing, you can tell when the weather's going to change. I can tell immediately when the weather's going to change by experiencing the difference in the barometer, right? Pressures, when you're fully activated. So you can tell the direction that it's coming from and what it's going to do and how long it's going to be there, and then it's going to leave, right? And so he mentioned how the speed of change is taking place. He said, it used to only take, might be 10 minutes before I experience what I'm experiencing holographically by the virtue of the codes. Now I'm experiencing it in a minute. Wow, things are happening really fast. That means that vortex energy, vortex-coded energy, is moving at a higher rate of speed to experience what? The event in the vectors. Change is happening quicker now. And so I remembered, because I grew up in Newport Beach, California in the 50s and early 60s, and I loved to go out and body surf in the ocean and surf and all that. And it was not unusual because you can go back and look at the history of hurricanes where they developed down there and what's down in Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of California, down in that area, Baja. And we called them Baja storms. Now for us, we loved it when it was doing stuff down there, those hurricanes, because it used to do what? Huge swells So the swells would come up, and now the surf is going to get up to 20, 25 feet. You can go back and look at the record where it was new pipeline at Newport, which meant pipeline on Oahu, which is a famous tunnel, big waves, a lot of energy being released, right? And so it was not unusual for us to see, because we waited for that time of year, which was usually later August and early part of September, that I remember those storms that were pushing big swells. But apparently the weather guys are saying this is going to bring a lot of water. And the last time they experienced that much water hitting the land mass was 1939. So you know how their gematria works, right? 39. Right? So I've mentioned this many times, they play number games with their Metatronic spiral. Right? To play fake God with numbers. Atmospheric numbers. Atmospheric fire letters. Codes. Right? Coded holographic realities. A dead light energy reality and a living light energy reality. So we run different live streams. One's is based on what love is. Right? Dead water zones, living water zones. I know. So what I mentioned to Karen yesterday, just remain calm. Be calm. And just, I laugh at it, even though it's not funny, is it? Because people are going to experience, what they target, this is obvious, is what? The central nervous system. They go after your neurons. Right? So that your neurons are not in balance, so that your atoms are not in balance between what? Two planetary poles. What I call the guardrails on the DNA, the ladder, the stairway to heaven, the spirals, ascending and descending spirals, the breath of love, breathing in and out, love energy, instead of breathing in and out dead energy. That's the difference in spirals, breathing dead energy and breathing in love energy. That's the difference between what that is and what we are. That's knowing one from the other. Knowing the one spiral, the first spiral, and their spiral. Right? So it's do things that you love to do. Be happy and joyful. It's actually the greatest celebration in the history of the entire cosmos. Did you know that? This isn't in a galactic scale or even in a planetary scale. This is Cosmina scale. Manu era. E uma atra ina. Ika shade. Ira sharadi kasha. Mano ekra da kuki. Yeah. Manaka iha hura. Haramaya manaki kirasha. Mua.